Welcome to Punky's Pro Wrestling. I hope you enjoyed the brand new intro. And I would like to tell you about my favorites. When I was growing up, my favorites were, well, the Rock and Roll Express, but as I got older, I realized they weren't as good in the ring as the Midnight Express. So, I began to like the Midnight Express more. And I have had the privilege of speaking with Bobby Eaton, God rest his soul. You had to die on my birthday, right, Bobby? Which was devastating. It would have been devastating any day, but on my birthday, was even worse. It was even worse. I am friendly with Bobby's daughter, Bobby's sister. I started his tribute group. Well, I took over the administration of it because it wasn't doing anything, and it needed an administrator when I was searching for like wrestling groups and stuff. So I took it over, and I couldn't even believe how fast I was growing it. And his sister contacted me, and then I got to talk to Bobby, and it was really neat. And I've gotten to talk to Jim Cornette. Goodness. Sorry, I'm actually working on something. If you watch the other channel, you'll know exactly what's going on. When I ordered his book autographed, and what else? So yeah, that was. I will always like them. I want them in the Hall of Fame, and as that time gets closer, we will come up with our own potential Hall of Fame list and have some fun with that on this channel. I have not watched SummerSlam yet. At this point, I'm not sure I'm going to, just because I know what happened. You know, I hate that. Anyway. I was a huge fan of Shawn Michaels. That was later on. That was as an adult. Fan of Bret Hart. My father was always a fan of Bret Hart. I think he was my father's favorite. When Gorilla Monsoon dubbed him the excellence of execution, my father couldn't have agreed more. And Jim Neidhart was just comic relief for my dad. But the Hart Foundation was his favorite tag team. He didn't care whether they were good guys or bad guys. He loved watching them. And not only comic relief, but he was power, Jim Neidhart. And my dad liked the combination of the science and the power as a team. And it's true, that is an excellent combination. In my opinion. I also, excuse me, have been fortunate enough to see a lot of guys live. Who would I like to see live? Well, I'd like to see AJ actually wrestle. He was supposed to wrestle at the show I went to, but they changed it to one of his OC colleagues, or partners rather, which sucked. I just cried. But at least I got to see Jericho that night. I've seen Jericho wrestle several times. I had seen Chris Benoit wrestle several times, which is awesome. In fact, I remember Jericho coming out. This was an early SmackDown. This is like in the what they call the naughties, which is the single digit years, from 0 to 10. Oh my gosh, I found it. From 0 to 10 of a decade. They're called the naughties. And I'd say it was around, I don't know, 6 or 7. And I remember he was out there for a long time. At the end of the stage, going back and forth. And it was fun. I remember being so excited to be at Raw the night of the ECW invasion. Right there when they were in the ring and Paul Heyman was talking, and I'm looking at, Saturn and Cronus, and I'm looking at, so many cool guys, and it was pretty awesome, and I got to see, what is his name? From ECW. Why can't I remember his name? The Sheik's nephew. Oh, for crying out loud. Sabu actually wrestled, and he was doing one of his high flying moves, and well, the ringside area was closer, I think, than he was used to. I don't know, but he ended up kicking a little girl in the face, not intentionally, of course, but as he was jumping off the chair and doing whatever toward the ring, his foot went back, and she was hurt. I remember her crying, and I remember them taking her away. I think she was bleeding, actually. That's probably one of the scariest things I've witnessed live in wrestling. I think one of the funniest was I went with my dad. I was just a kid, and I remember, and I said this to him. They had this like battle royal, and there's a WWF at that time event, and they had this battle royal, and Bobby Heenan thought he won because he was sneaky. He didn't get in until the end, and he's celebrating. Well, Moolah hadn't been eliminated, so she came up behind him, drop kicked him. He went out over the top rope, and Moolah won. The crowd went nuts. It was so much fun. And back in those days, they did television tapings, and they were all-night affairs. Today, for the most part, television is live. So, and they might tape one not live show, in the end of the live show. So, yeah, it's tough. And I remember actually like talking to Shawn Michaels at ringside. I remember him jumping up and hugging a bunch of us, and he had just wrestled. But I said to the girl next to me, "He smells so good," because you could smell his cologne. And he picked up his head and he looked at me. I'm like, oh my god, he must think I'm a weirdo. But yeah, I was a part of a fan club for him, which was fun. It was a fan-run fan club. It wasn't like an official fan club or anything. I used to write letters back in the day to wrestlers, but they get to the promotions, and I'm not sure that they ever get to the wrestlers. And if they do, they might get a whole mailbag full of them, so they don't get through them, that kind of thing. I loved the Road Warriors, Wahoo McDaniels, the Von Erichs. You can tell where I grew up. Well, not where I grew up, but where I grew up in the timeline of life, is what I meant. I grew up in the 80s, and so in the late 70s, but my wrestling fandom probably started around 79, 80. Probably around 80. So, all the promotions that I put in my intro video, I have watched, World Class, WWF, WWE/F, WCW, of course. Loved Dustin Rhodes as the Natural. The AWA. I am getting a picture of an autographed picture of Ox Baker that my friend has. Of course, we have AEW. We have Glow, Gorgeous Ladies of Wrestling. We have the NWA, the National Wrestling Alliance. Please ignore my poor excuse for the state of Georgia in the middle. TNA, Total Nonstop Wrestling, or NWA TNA. And POW, Powerful Women of Wrestling. So, and I kept these, actually, I'm going to move them. I kept these for a reason from my intro, because if I am talking about something, oh, come on. What's going on here? Come on. About something having to do with one of those promotions, I can just show you the card so you know what promotion we're going into. I just thought that would be a fun way to introduce stories. So, I am very fortunate to have all the memories, and to have the memories with my dad. I remember us cuddling up on the couch under a blanket, when his health was failing, and him asking me who all the new guys were. It was so wonderful. And I have the memories of him telling me about, and I mentioned this before, but about like Ivan Putski just walking down the street, and about his adventures in Webster when he used to go. And and that's another reason the case that I'm doing means so much to me, is my father had a connection to the town, because he used to go to wrestling almost on a weekly basis there. in his late teens, early 20s when he had a job. You know, to make it clear, he had a job. And my father always had a job, but that's why he was able to go to those shows and meet those guys, see those guys wrestle, stuff like that. And you know, and I have the memory with both my parents of meeting Rey Mysterio Jr. He is a sweetheart, and so is Che of the Nitro Girls. I am telling you, he is beyond sweet. So, I know I'm blessed. When I met Goldberg, so I just wanted to share that with you guys. Sort of, what would you call this? A wrestling vlog. Just to sort of introduce you to my wrestling world. By the way, my father used to show me the guys from the 50s as well. Edouard Carpentier and Antonino Argentino Rocca. And, you know, I would watch Bruno Sammartino because Bruno retired right around the time that I can barely remember watching wrestling. The earliest memories I have, Tito Santana and Pedro Morales, who was the first Hispanic WWF champion, or WWE, were tag team champions. The first, I believe they were the first Hispanic tag team champions in the company. And so I remember that. I remember the tail end of Bob Backlund's first run. So that's where I'm at, about 1980, 81. So, to where I start to really remember. So, thank you so much for listening. Please hit that subscribe button. God bless you, and I will see you next time. I'll see you Thursday. Bye, guys.